All right. So what's up, Steve?
Hey, what's going on, Marlon?
How
How
are
you
you?
doing, bro?
Good, good, good. So first, I just want to thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to just share this evening and this moment with us and my audience. For those of you who don't know, Steve is a very good personal friend of mine who's also my financial advisor and financial mentor and has been for about 8 years now, right? It's
Yeah,
been,
buddy.
been some time. Yeah, I think we started in 2012. So I've just learned a wealth of knowledge from Steve. I've been able to just elevate, my knowledge of money management as well as financial literacy. And I wanted to take this opportunity to bring Steve on and share some of his knowledge and his insight, specifically for visual artists and creatives, because as we know, time is our most valuable asset, and time is, as they say, time is money. And I want Steve to really come on here and share with us, give us some philosophies on money, give us some strategies, because I read recently, Steve, that 58% of Americans don't have $500 for an emergency expense. And I was just like, wow, so it's not just a entrepreneur thing. It's a American thing. It's an individual thing that's going on within our nation. And so money is really, really important to our success. There's really no secret ingredient. I want to take, as I advocate for visual artists and I provide my consultation for visual artists, I want to make sure I'm approaching success in business from a holistic perspective. And I notice everybody's kind of looking for that secret ingredient or that magic pill or that secret potion, but there really there's a large, as you and I know, there are many different components and many different layers to having success in business, and money management is one of the most important. So I want to just, with that, I want to just give you an opportunity to just share with us, Steve, how can artists manage their money and budget their money for success? Where should we start?
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for allowing me to share on this message with your audience, Marlon. And I got to give it right back to you too, man, because I mean, all of us are busy. We can be doing many things, and for us to sit down and spend a couple of minutes and have this conversation about money. Money is a very important topic. Without money, some people may say money's not everything, and that's true. But I can tell you what, I think all of us operate a little bit better when it's 40 degrees outside and the heat is actually turned on. I think we actually operate a little better.
Exactly.
Eating is a hard habit to break. Guess what? We need some money to get some food. So
absolutely,
no matter what we think about it, money is a very, very, very important topic. And one of the things that, Marlon, I think one of the reasons why you and I got along so well from the very beginning, when I sat down and met you and your beautiful wife, Tamara, and so forth, I really had a lot of respect for you, because I sit down with hundreds, over this whole 12-year run of being a financial professional, thousands of individuals. But I sit down with hundreds of families per year, and I share all these different concepts and so forth. There's nothing, I'm not coming up with anything new. It's not a Steve thing. All this stuff has been reiterated over and over and over again. The only challenge, the secret, as you said, there is a secret. The secret is actually to do what you know. And that's the thing that I really liked about you, Marlon. Everything I shared with you, ran and attacked it, accomplished it. It was like, what's next?
Right.
What's next?
Right. Right.
So that is the secret, believe it or not. Me sitting down here, me and Marlon, and sitting here sharing this information. There's nothing secret about that. But if you don't put the verb of do, if you don't actually do it, what good is it? It's not about what you know. It's about what you do. That makes sense?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. And so now I'm gonna go back just a little bit to Marlon, because I'll give everybody just a little bit of more background about me. But for most of this audience, we've all heard this as we were growing up. You need to go to school. You need to get good grades. You need to go get a good job, and you'll be set. And I'm a very detail-oriented person, and I did all those things. I went to school, 2 degrees, 3.9 GPA, all that stuff. Went into the workforce. Start working my way up the corporate ladder. And what I found is that the more money I made, I had this particular family member, Uncle Sam, the more money I made, the more money he took. So even though I was making more money, I wasn't getting anywhere. And then right about in 2008, after the financial crash, we had the crash from 2007 through 2009. And when I saw half of my retirement portfolio disappear in an 18-month period, I realized that even though I had these multiple degrees and so forth, I didn't know anything when it came to finances. And so I started this career just to become better in my own finances. And then I started helping family and friends. And then families and friends started paying me to do it. And then I actually got licensed and so forth. And here we are, 12 years later, made hundreds of thousands of dollars simply by helping middle income America. I love middle income America. I love helping wealthy people as well, but I have a heart for middle income because that's the way my family is. That's what I was raised at. And these simple concepts, some of the concepts we're going to even go over today, simply were not shared with us. And I just want to make sure that all of the artists that's on this in your circle are going to get some great knowledge with us today. And so in today's conversation, quite honestly, it's going to be conversational. It's going to be simple. I love having a conversation, so I'm not going to lecture anyone or anything like that. It's going to be a simple conversation. We're going to hit on budget, and I actually have a different term for the word budget. I call it a spending plan because a budget sounds a little restrictive, but a budget and a spending plan is really one and the same. I just like more of that positive nature. We're going to talk a little bit about how should an artist manage their money. We're going to talk a little bit about how does an artist what is my art worth? How do I know what to price my art for? Maybe we'll take a couple of Q&A questions, and then we're going to close it up for the night. So it's going to be real simple like that. Does that sounds good?
That sounds great.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm gonna jump in a little bit about the spending plan.
Okay.
The spending plan, in reality, is just 4 key areas that we all need to focus on. And these 4 key areas, each one of them have a percentage to it. When we add all 4 percentages, it's going to equal 100%. But the biggest one, we're going to start with 50% of your income should actually be designated for your obligations. And that's going to be whether it's a car note, whether it's a mortgage, whether it's rent, cell phone, cable, all of those types of things. But your obligations should equal roughly half of your income, 50%. So that's right off the bat. The next one, it's only 15%. 15% is going to be for discretionary things. And what is discretionary? That's like how, basically lifestyle. How often do you dine out? Do you get Starbucks for lunch and go to Chick-fil-A get Starbucks for coffee for breakfast, then go to Chick-fil-A for lunch, and then maybe go to, I don't even know, Ruth Chris for dinner. That discretionary income starts disappearing pretty quickly. But 15% of your income should be designated for discretionary purposes. And then another 15%, that should really go right towards saving and investing. We can do another. If your audience likes this and you welcome me back, we can actually have a whole session on savings and investments.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We'll continue this and make that a follow-up discussion.
Okay. Yeah, but 15% of your income should go right into savings and investing, including the 401k. If someone is, has a traditional job and they're doing their artist, they're chasing their passion on the side until that income comes to be enough that they can walk away from their full time. But we want to make sure that 15% is going to savings. So at that point, we are up to 80%. So we're up to 80% of your income. 50% was obligations. 15% was discretionary. 15% is savings and investings. So at that point, we're at 80%. That last 20%, want to take a guess what that last 20% is, Marlon?
The last 20% is taxes.
There you go. You're spot on. Uncle Sam got to get his. But that's the great thing about being an artist, about being an entrepreneur. You can actually somewhat control your tax flow by different things they call deductions. Simple things like your cell phone. If you're painting, the actual paint and your canvases, and maybe driving and part of your cell phone, part of your technology, whether you're using iPads and Surface Pros. So that tax that you're already using that stuff for yourself anyway. And let me say this too, I'm not a tax professional, so please talk to your tax advisor about all the legal ways to do those different things. But you have a tremendous opportunity to write off things that you're already doing. You're already spending the money, you're already using it for business. So now let's just make that proper and make it tax deductible. But 20% will go towards their taxes. That makes sense?
That's very important. Very important.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt about it. You got any comments on that one, Marlon? What you got?
No, that's great. That's great insight. I love that breakdown, because a lot of times, and it's really about having that structure and a plan, right? Because we say it all the time. People don't plan to fail; they fail to plan. And having that breakdown, I like having the visuals. I like having visuals. So having that breakdown and putting it somewhere where I can constantly look at and monitor will be very, very helpful. So I hope that'll be helpful for others as well. One of the things that I don't know if you're going to go here or not, but my main objective, Steve, is really to get artists out of a constant state of survival mode. Again, it's about having balance. It's about being able to have the time to do the things that you love doing in your passions, which is creating your art, but also family time. Have time to focus on your health, because any area on one or two extremes, if you're too much on the work side, working in your business, and not enough times, working on your business, or if it's all work and you're not focusing on your health can suffer. Mm-hmm. So it's about really having balance, and again, getting out of survival mode and transitioning to a place where you have balance and you can flourish and have success in your business and with your art practice. But with that, I work with a lot of emerging artists, and I hate this phrase, but they throw it around a lot, the struggling artists. Mm-hmm. What would be your advice or some suggestions you would have for the emerging artists to budget the money when they don't have much coming in?
Obviously, that is a great question. And these different concepts that we're going to be sharing, we're talking about artists, but even if you're a non-artist, these things are going to still be very applicable.
Absolutely.
But one of the things I would say when it comes to artists, you almost hit it on the head right there. You have to look at your art practice as a business. And business, believe it or not, is actually predictable and is also cyclical. It's just funny that it be predictable and cyclical at the same time. And by predictable, I mean, it's just basically numbers. No matter whatever your business is, if you see a certain amount of people actually going to buy. Let's say if you need to see 10 people, if you see 10 people, chances are that piece of art you're trying to sell will sell if you see 10 potential buyers. Well, whether you see those 10 potential buyers, if you did it in 1 week or if you did it in 1 year, however long it takes you to see those 10 potential buyers to get your one sale, it's still the law of numbers. So it's up to you. That goes back to that verb about doing. It's up to us to actually go out and seek our buying audience and actually give them what they want. But to answer the question a little bit more directly, when I hear the word emerging, struggling, all of those different things, it really comes down to mindset. And I believe that mindset is important. It's extremely important. Because if you don't believe in it, if your mind can never you can never physically achieve more than your mind believes you can. It's just impossible. So if your mindset is actually deterring you, you actually may have to get around some people who will force you to succeed against your own will if necessary. But the first thing we have to do is work on that mindset. And then when I say that business is predictable, but it's also cyclical, what I mean by that is you may find a groove, you may find something that is working for you. That is not guaranteed to work forever. We see that 2020 has been a great example of that. The things that worked in 2017, the things that worked in 2019, well, that's been turned upside down. None of those things are working in 2020. So even though it's predictable, it is cyclical, and you have to be willing to change. If you're not willing to change, you're going to get left behind. So you have to have a penchant and embrace that change, because change is just for the better. Imagine if we had no, you just earlier we were talking about technology and an iPhone, but imagine if when the iPhone came out 11 years ago, they came out with that one iPhone and never made any more changes. Now they're up to iPhone 12 iterations. But what if they just came out with the iPhone, the first one, left it alone and never kept on evolving? Business is always going to be evolving. And so we also have to evolve with it. And then for those who feel who are struggling, maybe they don't have that income stream that they want coming in right now. Well, we actually kind of talked about that in somewhat just a few minutes ago, because it's all predictable. Is based upon your audience, your buying audience, not just your audience, but your buying audience, and how many people do we need to see in order to make that, to make that particular sale, selling your piece of art. I can almost transition a little bit there too, Marlon. If hopefully I answered the question before I try to transition here. Is that
That was good. That was great.
Okay, because I think another question that we see a lot in the artist field for those who practice art is they don't know how to price their art. How many times have you heard that particular question? Have you heard that question?
Absolutely. That's actually a hot topic amongst the group of artists that I work with. And I've actually surveyed my audience several times on different questions and different areas where they see challenges in their business. And that's one of the more common areas that a lot of artists struggle with, and I, it's an elusive thing for visual artists, specifically because, art value, it's very, very subjective, but it's also, you have art where it's valued by provenance. If Jay-Z or Beyonce owns a piece, or Rockefeller owned a piece, then just by that person owning it, it elevates the value of that person's art. And they can now, charge more or higher price point. But it's interesting because, the two artists will have they'll pay their expenses to create the art will essentially be the same. They'll pay the same amount of money for the paint. They'll pay the same amount of money for the canvas, for the brushes, and so on and so forth. But one artist may be able to sell their work for $10,000, and the other may be selling their work for $400 or $500. Why is that? That's usually the code that a lot of artists are trying to crack. Because in traditional business, you can add up all of your expenses, your hours of your billable hours, and back in to your fees or so forth. But in art, it's one of those things where you got to really know your market. You got to know your demand. One of the things too that I share with artists is that, if you are just starting out and you're trying to price your work at $10,000 or $15,000, do you have anyone in your circle that actually has that kind of disposable income, or disposable money or funds? Right. If you don't have that network or that circle, then, because a lot of artists who are selling that high-end work at higher price points, they have access to those circles and to those networks. And so you got to kind of be real with who your audience is and who your buying like you said, your buying customers are, or your buying clients are, and really, start to devise a number based on those, those components, those variables. What is the demand for your art? What does your network and your circle look like? What's your reach? If the people in your circle don't have disposable income, and also they have to have disposable income and interest in buying art, because everyone who has money, the money that you're looking for, they may not want to put it into art. They may want to put it into something else. So you have to find people that are collectors, that are interested in buying your art, and have the means to do so at the price points that you're asking. So your ask price has to be realistic to your audience and the demand for your work.
Yeah. Yeah, you put a lot out there too, Marlon. The only thing I probably would change is just the term disposable, and I
Hmm.
actually like to use the word discretionary, and it's kind of the same thing, but just discretionary income as opposed to disposable.
Okay.
Because remember that discretionary income, that's should be 15% of our income that we use for discretionary purposes. And for
Right.
those who love art, they want to make sure that that 15% could potentially be going, not necessarily disposable, I guess is all I'm saying. I
No,
just
that's good.
personally prefer the word discretionary as opposed to
Like that.
disposable.
Words matter. So thank you for correcting me.
Yeah. And then piggybacking on what you just said, I believe you're spot on. And art pricing, as all pricing really is kind of subjective. And the person who actually is going to define what your art is worth is the consumer. The
Mm,
consumer is going to define your pricing. Let's take art off the table just for a second. And let's just say I had a 2000 Toyota Camry, a 2000 Toyota Camry. It got 120,000 miles on it, and I'm trying to sell it right now in 2020 for $40,000. I'm trying to sell it for more than I actually paid for it. What are the chances I'm going to sell that? Slim to none, I would say, right? It's going to be slim to none. And
yeah.
then sometimes what you hear, if we switch that same thing to an artist perspective, you hear them saying, well, maybe even for this Toyota Camry, I'll say, well, look, I bought this thing brand new in 1999. I've
Right.
taken great care of it. I've been hand washing it, hand waxing it, all these different things. I've taken great care of it. Therefore, I want $40,000 because I've taken the best care you possibly can of this 2000 Toyota Camry. No matter what I say, nobody's buying that Camry for $40,000.
No.
So who is actually? So that's what I want to price it for, and it's subject. I want to sell it for that. But who's going to define how much it's going to sell for? It's the consumer, the person who's looking for that 2000 Toyota Camry. It's going to be similar when it comes down to our art. We may say, now I'm switching over a little bit, but we may say, I took 2 months to paint this particular painting. I've spent hours on it and this and that. I've stored it to make sure it's preserved properly. And I want to sell it, using your example, I want to sell it for $15,000. So far, I've only sold one painting, and that painting was $300. But this particular one, I'm selling for 15 grand. That may be a little bit challenging to do so. So again, the person who's actually going to define what your art is going to be the consumer. The consumer is actually the one that's going to define that for us. It's nothing wrong with testing your market. You can test your market, but you have to be, because maybe you run across someone who actually prefers to buy art from an emerging artist. Maybe they want to buy it now when you're just starting out, then watch you grow and watch you build. And maybe 20 years later, they can say, oh man, when Marlon started out in 1942, he made this particular painting and I got one of the first ones. It could be someone out there like that. But chances are that's not going to be the norm. So
it's interesting you said that, because that was actually going to be my follow-up question or comment. How do you get to the customer defining your price points? And I was going to suggest that you do have to test the market. Someone left a comment that says provide methods for your customer to meet the price. And so that's kind of, that falls into, you have to test the market. But I would say, I know a lot of artists that will let their work sit for months and years. And so my thing is, if you've priced it at a price point where you're not moving it for over a year, then you may want to recalibrate your pricing and readjust. What would you say? Is there a time limit that you would recommend artists to readjust their pricing? Or
I think, and remember, Marlon, you're the expert when it comes to the artist profession,
right.
To that whole practice of art. But I guess it would depend on how long it takes for a person to craft, to actually come up with their pieces. So if it takes them, I don't know, and again, that's not my field, so I'm maybe way off here. But if it took me a month or two to create a piece, giving it another 10 months to actually sell, I think that's more than appropriate. But if it took me 8 or 9 months to create a piece, then that one I would probably be willing to hold on for a little bit longer. Maybe it'd be a 2-year period if it took me 8 months to a year to actually create a piece. So
that's great. That's great input, because that's where I was going at with the time, and just so it's different for every artist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are artists who can produce large, massive size pieces in a day or two, and then there are others who are more meticulous, and they're more they can take up to 2 or 3 months and go back and revisit, and it's a constant process for those types of artists. It varies based on the artist, but your response, I think, was spot on. Based on how long it takes, it's going to create that work of art, and how much you pour into it, I think that's a good measurement. You know, how long you take to create it will also dictate how long you're willing to wait for the sale.
Yeah, definitely would agree with that. That was a great question. Whoever asked that or put that in there, that was a great question slash comment. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And Marlon, as time is already slipping on us, I do want to touch on something you had mentioned in the intro.
Okay.
I forgot how you phrased it, but I think you said, actually, I took a note there, working in your business versus working on your business.
Yes.
And man, that is so key. And again, this is whether you're an artist, whether you are into finances, whether you're an actor, it doesn't make a difference what your profession is. But of course, we're keeping it here for artists. Working on your business versus working in your business. When you're working on your business, that may not necessarily be an income producing activity called IPA. You want to be focusing on IPAs, income producing activities. And I'm going to use my profession as an example.
Say that one more time, Steve. That was good.
Income producing activity, IPA.
Okay.
Income producing activities.
Got it.
And you want to be focusing on income producing activities, not things that are not directly going to bring you income. And I'm going to let you give me an example in art, but I'm going to give you an example from my world, from the world of finances.
Okay.
So the way that I meet, prior to COVID, the way that I met a lot of my clients was actually by doing, group presentations, and then giving them, that's how I met you actually, and then giving them opportunity to sit down with me one-on-one and then personally navigate through some information. Well, of course, that's fully changed 2020. But when I do that, let's say if I sat down, if I did a group presentation and it was 50 people there, and out of that 50, 20 to 25 actually want to sit down and move forward with me. Well, in order to do that, somebody needs to pick up the phone, reach back out to them, set up a meeting and things of that nature. So those particular activities, picking up the phone, calling, and setting up appointments, those are not income producing activities for me. So what I can do is actually outsource that portion of it to someone who doesn't have all the certifications and all that stuff that I have, where they make the phone call, set the meeting, and then I actually go do the meeting. Doing the meeting is going to be an income producing activity for me. But calling to set the meeting up is not necessarily an income producing activity. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So in the art world, there's probably, I'm sure you may even be doing some of these yourself, Marlon, but there's probably some things that a lot of artists actually are doing where they're working on their business when they really need to be working in their business. And that comes to, there's lots of things we can do. When it comes to changing the oil in our car, well, guess what? I can change the oil in my car, but I don't want to. So what do? I take it and, pay $50 or whatever to get the oil changed.
Yeah.
And, for those with big homes, you can easily cut your grass, but chances are you paying somebody to cut your. We can do that. We can shave ourselves and cut our own hair. We can do anything we choose to. But you mentioned this before too. Time is our most precious, our most valuable asset. And so why spend our time on things that are not necessarily helping us directly achieve where we need to go? Time is precious. So you actually buying your time back by outsourcing. Now give that to someone who's a profession in that field. I'd rather have somebody cut my grass and cut it and it looks nice and manicured and the grass blades are all even, then I go out there and hack it all up and put some divots, some divots in the grass. So,
Right. Yeah, I think for visual artists, that's interesting that you bring that up, because I've been really pushing for visual artists to get into broadcasting their work live and selling their work live through live broadcasting. I've seen several artists now; they're more seasoned, but they are doing really, really well and generating great income selling their artwork live, almost like an auction style setting. But that's what I believe I call an income producing activity for the visual artist, because artists are in the business of creating art and images. I think it's easy to get sucked into social media, specifically Instagram, because Instagram is more so a visual platform as opposed to LinkedIn and some of the others. So I see a lot of artists posting all of their work and, process videos and different things on social media, but that's not necessarily it's important and you're growing your audience. But like you said, just like for you picking up the phone, that those activities aren't necessarily producing income, but broadcasting live to sell your work is actually an income producing activity. And so that's kind of confirmation for where I've been over the last few months in pushing and encouraging artists to really get into selling your work as opposed to just constantly promoting your work. Marketing and promotions is important, but with us having to pivot with this social climate that we're in, where we can't go to art fairs and participate in pop-ups and exhibitions, you can't do those things live, but technology has allowed us to still create an opportunity to create an event virtually and sell your work. So I think that's a really, really important note to make.
Yeah. You are 200% spot on there. And when you talk about the Instagram as well as all the different social media platforms, but particular Instagram, for those that are in the art world, what that really comes down to as well, that's actually free marketing. So we just talk a little bit about outsourcing things that don't necessarily produce income, but at the same time, when it comes to Instagram, the best marketing is definitely needed no matter what your business. Without marketing, it's impossible to get in front of somebody new.
Absolutely.
And so we definitely want to be out here marketing.
Yes.
But Instagram is a free platform that allows us to do some marketing and make income at the same time. So I don't even, I'm pretty sure we don't have to tell anyone that's on this particular call or who'll be looking at this, because it's going to be those that are in the art practice.
Right.
Please be using Instagram. Please be using Instagram.
Absolutely. Yes. There's some thought leaders out there that will tell you, marketing is all of business. Without marketing, you really don't have a business. But you have to be very intentional about how you market. You have to have a marketing plan. You have to have the ability, like you mentioned earlier, Steve, you have to execute. You have to do the work. And it's more than just, as I believe we're all learning, it's more than just putting up pretty pictures. The thing is, it's so competitive right now. The more people who participate and jump on social media, the more people that get on social media, the more competition there is. And so there are people that are jumping on social media at quick rates. It's just growing so fast. It's just so vast, from YouTube to Twitter to, I thought Twitter was going to fade away years ago, but Twitter's still going strong. Instagram is still going strong. So the more people that participate, you actually have more competition, which means you have to create more dynamic, compelling pictures and content. And you have to, business is competitive, so you have to really if you want a share of the market, you have to be very intentional and very strategic about how you're going to get your piece. And you can't be lazy about it and really just, put up your pictures and have that if I build it, they will come attitude. I think that attitude is kind of a thing of the past. You have to really roll up your sleeves and do some work. So
yeah, if you remember earlier too, we talked about how business is predictable, but how it's also cyclical. So
yeah,
I mean, you could be doing something that's working tremendously for a quarter, maybe a month, 2 months, maybe in a whole year. But in the very next year, because it's cyclical, you got to redo that whole platform. So you have to be willing to change. If you're not willing to change, you will get left behind so fast and so far.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Just a sidebar. I was having a similar conversation with a friend of mine recently, and he was saying, talking about the subject of having to pivot and change and be open to change. We were talking about restaurants that traditionally didn't do takeout or delivery. Those high-end restaurants or whatever the type of restaurant it may be that didn't have delivery or takeout, they've had to, adjust and now incorporate delivery or takeout into their business.
Yeah.
So it's just an example of you have to be flexible. You have to be able to pivot, or you find yourself going out of business, unfortunately.
Yeah, get left behind real fast. Yeah.
Oh,
I try to be a little nicer with it, get left behind, but you're right on. You go out of business.
I mean, we all know by now, everyone knows about, the Blockbuster examples and, their inability to shift and get into that digital space. Blockbuster really had the opportunity to be what Netflix is. They had the customer base. They had everything in place, the infrastructure and everything. All they had to do was just pivot into the digital streaming space, but they didn't. So anyway, you definitely have to be flexible and open to change in business.
Yeah, we kind of got on that topic because we were talking about marketing. But I tell you, Marlon, marketing, I mean, that could be a whole easily another webinar in itself. But one of the worst things that can happen to a bad company, or if you have a bad product or a bad service, one of the worst things that you can have is good marketing. Because you have good marketing, you're going to have people that actually want to use their product or service, and then you can't even fulfill it. And I've seen that. I've even invested in companies and services who said they can do this and that, and I'm like, oh, you can do this and that, I'm in. And then they, maybe they want to do a monthly plan. You're like, no, I want to take care of the whole thing all in one shot. So the perfect customer, because your marketing was so good, and then you can't even produce what you claim you could. And so next thing you know, we got to go through a refund. So one of the worst things that happen to a bad product or service is actually good marketing. But then sometimes we see it the other way too. We'll see someone who may have a good service, someone who may have a good product, but they were not willing to outsource that marketing, and they're the best kept secret in the world. And so that marketing, that is definitely something key. Don't be afraid to outsource for your marketing. There could be, fellow artists who may have some experience in that marketing space who can even help you, help another artist get to where they need. Let them know what sharing is caring, but share what's worked, what has not worked. And then if you've outsourced it to someone else, if you outsourced it and they didn't do what they're supposed to do, make sure you share that so they don't go down that same road. If you found someone that was amazing at their product or service, make sure you share that. And, help each one teach one, help all entrepreneurs, all artists, help everyone grow together, especially, those who are entrepreneur does not, and I'm not knocking anything as big box or anything like that. But definitely those who are starting out from their own home, starting their own thing, those who are transitioning, we have to look out for those type of individuals. Walmart is everywhere. I'm sure that the art that you find at Walmart, I don't even know if you want to call it art, but the art that you find at Walmart is not going to be as nice as the piece of art you have right behind you and so forth. So we got to look out for one another.
Absolutely. Well, we covered a lot, Steve, and we're actually ahead of schedule, but before we wrap up, and I'm not sure if you were, I may be catching you off guard a little bit with this question, but one of the things, depending on, who I'm speaking to, I always want to get their perspective from their, as a subject matter expert in their field. I always want them to leave, our listeners or our audience, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned in your journey in business as an entrepreneur? One, that's part 1A, and then part B to the question is, what's the most important financial literacy lesson that you would leave with our audience? What if you had to share one thing that you want folks to do with their money, what would that be?
Gotcha. Believe it or not, Mark, thank you for asking that question, man. But it's almost the same answer to both of them. But the biggest lesson that I've learned in this 12 years of helping people in the financial service space is that debt is the biggest obstacle to anyone's financial success. Debt is the biggest obstacle to anyone's financial success. If you think about it, if you had no debt, me too, if I had no debt, if you had no debt, how much better would life be? If you had no mortgage, because some people say mortgage, their home is their biggest investment,
right?
It's their biggest asset. In reality, in my opinion, your mortgage is your biggest liability. The easiest way to tell an asset versus a liability, lose your income for 3 months. If you lose your income for 3 months, you will quickly find out what are assets and what are liabilities. Assets put money in your pocket. Liabilities take money out of your pocket. And I'm not talking about the kids now, so let's not put the kids in there. But liabilities take money directly out of your pocket. So if you lose,
for some, it may be a liability. If you 30 still, at home. No, I'm just joking. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that is definitely the biggest lesson. And then the literacy lesson is simply to make a plan to service and, more importantly, eliminate your debt. To make a plan to service and eliminate your debt. And it's funny that you even bring that up, because that's one of the things when I sat down with you and Tamara, the very first thing that I did with you guys was set up a debt elimination plan. That preceded investing. Investing is important, is sexy, is all. We always worried about growing our money, but the most important thing we can do is eliminate that debt. Once that debt's eliminated, the money that was going to these debts, the money that's going to a credit card or to a car note and to maybe a Target credit card and all these type of different things, once all that debt's eliminated, instead of paying that $80 here, $300 for the car there, things of that nature, now all of a sudden you just freed up money that you can put directly into your art business, that money you can put directly into your 401k, money that you maybe can put into Forex, which stands for the foreign exchange. There's some money that you can put into real estate. I mean, there's so many different places that you can save and invest. And we're going to talk about that on another conversation. But that's the key, is that we got to eliminate those debts. And for anyone that needs some help with eliminating debt, actually, I will offer my services to your circle, Marlon. Is it okay if I leave my contact information here?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so for those who are on this call, feel free to contact me on my direct cell phone line. And that number is going to be 703-618-5972. I know this is going to the World Wide Web, so I'm going to say it one more time, but it's Steve DaCosta, 703-618-5972. And I look forward to sitting down, complimentary session, and setting up some debt elimination plans, getting people on the right track. You'll be surprised that when you actually, when you make a plan, a written plan, because it can't just be verbal. When you have a written plan, and Marlon can attest to this, next thing you know, you start putting some checks box as each one of those debts start getting eliminated. And then the next thing you know, just like Marlon and his beautiful wife Tamara did, now you change your focus. You may have been thinking you want to get a new home and a 10, 12-year plan. But once that debt's eliminated, that plan may switch to 2 or 3 years. So if anyone has any interest in that, definitely give me a call. Me and my team go make sure we take great care of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can just, just to piggyback on that, I can definitely, testify to that, those statements you just made, and also the success and the information that you gave. Tamara and I, when we were in premarital counseling, preparing to get married, we set our goals up for 1 year, 5 year, 10-year goals. And one of the things I told her for a 5-year goal was I wanted to build her a house in 5 years. And when we sat down with you, our first year in marriage, and we went over our plan and the debt consolidation plan, by having that plan, we were actually able to eliminate pretty much 90% of our debt. And we actually achieved our goal of building a house within 4 years. So we actually did it a year faster. So it was, I saw firsthand how important it is to really, one, have the information, and be open to getting the information and being a student of, just in life in general, but you have to always be open to learning. I try to remove having that God complex, having that know-it-all. I already know this. I'm hip. A lot of times, that God complex will keep us from really growing and moving forward towards our goals. But I was open. We sat down with you, and we listened. And like you mentioned early on, that, we actually took the plan and we executed, and we saw the results. So that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to get you here with my audience this evening, is to just, one, get them familiar with you, because I want this to be an ongoing discussion. I want to do several more discussions with you, maybe create a series. But, I believe this information is just so important. Financial literacy is so important, so key. And again, it's, Steve DaCosta. I put the number here at the below here at the on the banner. It's Steve DaCosta, 703-618-5972. Feel free to hit up my boy. You won't be disappointed. Again, Steve's my mentor. We've been doing business together for quite a few years now, going on 8 years. And I feel completely confident referring you to anyone I know in my network.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you again, Steve. I look forward to getting with you and continuing this conversations on investing. I definitely want to dig into the savings portion and investing as well for, just our artists, our creatives, and just entrepreneurs as a whole.
Yeah. Well, Marlon, brother, thank you for inviting me to your circle. And I enjoyed this bit of time that we had here this evening, and also look forward to serving some more. And one day, actually looking, we can get back to doing some live events too. I love doing live events, looking people right in the eyes. So I look forward to doing that with the crew as well, with all of for everyone that's in their art practice. And I love you, bro, man. Thank you, man.
You too, bro.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.